Hi, my name is Lauren Pulowski, and I chose my amazing animal to be the
Small-toothed
small-toothed
sawfish,
sawfish,
Pristis pectinata.
Pristis pectinata, excuse me. I decided to do the sawfish when I went to. I'll tell you about it later, but when I went to a conference in northern suburb or western suburbs of Chicago, and I ran into a shark geneticist, and I listened in on his speech, and he was talking about this all the data they're getting and what's happening to the habitat and how he gets genetic information from people working the field down there and process it at the Field Museum in Chicago, and all of the teamwork that happens in order to get information that is rapidly going away because of um, extinction probabilities or endangered for being an endangered species. So their numbers are dwindling, but there's a lot of teamwork going on to try and figure out how we can do amazing stuff with them and bring up their numbers. Okay. First, I'm going to talk about the taxonomic information. So, kingdom Animalia, of course, phylum Chordata, class Chondrichthyes, order Rhinopristiformes, family Pristidae, genus Pristis, and the species would be then Pristis pectinata. They are over here. So you can see how closely related they are to the skates and the rays. And I want to point out that they are related to sharks. Um, they both have cartilage structure to their bodies. They don't rely on bone. It has an ossivide or anything like that. So they are related to the sharks, but they're more related to rays and skates. Um, Part of me just loves the back that this is the Batoidea group because they do look like bats swimming in the sea. So I really enjoyed that. Um, my fact about this was the genus includes other sawfish species. So the genus is Pristis. They do include other sawfish species such as Pristis pristis, which is large toothed sawfish, and that fish is primarily available in not briny water. They prefer um, not to be in. They prefer to be in fresh water. I don't know why I had trouble with that. So I love that this shows how related they are to other fish, but they do have a shape, as you'll see, of rays in their body. So what are they? They're living species of ray. Like I said, the flattened body kind of looks like a pancake. Wide pectoral fins that are. It's not like it's like like it's very like the ray here. You could see how it's all forms one large um, pectoral fin, and you can kind of see that in this upper picture too. Um, okay, so these pectoral fins gives it a body shape similar to other rays. It does belong in Chondrichthyes and the subclass Elasmobranchii. So it has a skeleton made of flexible cartilage, resin bone, like I mentioned. The small tooth sawfish has its mouth and gill slits located on the outer side of the body, adaptation for feeding along the floor, classified as Rhinopristiformes, genus Pristis, in the species Pectinata. Within Rhinopristiformes, sawfish are most closely related to guitarfish and wedgefishes, which are some other pretty cool groups of fish that have different shapes. Okay, I sawfish. I saw sharks and I conquered. What are the similarities and differences between sawfish and saw sharks? They look an awful lot alike. I'll show you a picture of them coming up, but the rostrum is the best thing I think to look at for differences. Okay, so like I said, the rostrum here has about 32 teeth. They're all about the same length. If they lose them, that's it. They don't grow anymore. The saw shark, however, they can regenerate their rostrum teeth or rostral teeth if one falls out. But like I said, sawfish can't do that. You can see 10 centimeter line here on the sawfish versus the 10 centimeter line here on the saw shark. I'm sorry, on the sawfish is here. So sawfish are much larger. Their looks are deceiving in pictures because it's hard to make, it's hard to judge how big they are based on their surroundings. It's not like they have buildings or just objects to compare to, like a point of reference. But saw sharks, if they make it to maturity, are very large. When they're born, they aren't very large. They're about 10 inches, 12 inches. But as they double their size in a year, and as they grow, they can get up to, I read, 25 feet, but more like 16 to 20 feet, I would say, is about what you would see. I got the references for that were kind of weird. So saw shark teeth are more numerous but smaller. They're delicate. Like I said, if they fall out, they replace them. Unlike sawfish, where if it falls out, it's gone. The rostrum for the saw shark is more pointed, whereas the sawfish, it comes to a round, kind of like a round point, but it doesn't really taper off. So some of the other features to compare sawfish and saw sharks. Sawfish are true rays. And you could see that based on their body forms. It's kind of like they both form like this kite, and then the sawfish also have that huge rostrum coming out, but the body itself is shaped like a rhombus. It's in shape, or like I said, a kite. Saw sharks are true sharks. They're not in that ray family. The gills for the saw sharks are laterally, so they're on the sides of the body. The gills for the sawfish are on the ventral side, along with what you'll see is the mouth position is ventral as well. Saw sharks, the mouth is ventral, but near the front of the body, ventral, not, where in the direction that the fish is swimming. Another difference is that saw sharks have these barbels or these whisker type things. You can't see them in this slide, but there is a picture coming up. And they're present on the rostrum, and it's involved in electrosensing. So in both sawfish and saw sharks can do this. Mom.
What?
I'm recording here.
I have to get something from my purse.
Okay, this is a presentation. Okay, so the barbels aid in this electroreception and the sawfish have this as well, where they can kind of sense electric chemicals coming from prey or predators or like that are surrounding them. So it helps them capture prey and avoid predators. Speaking of predators and prey, so speaking of predators and prey, I wanted to take a minute to go back to what I said about the length of sawfish. Here is one that has been captured. Obviously, this picture is pretty old, but just using this person as a reference point, you can see that they are big, and they can reach up to 18 or 20 feet, and I've heard 25 or 30 feet if you look at the bottom here, but definitely big animal. This one I like that you get a picture of his like eyes and the rostrum. Small tooth sawfish are typically they eat on crustaceans, and then they scoop up from the bottom by their mouth, and then they also eat other fish. So they'll swoop their rostrum back and forth, with using their sharp teeth to hopefully like puncture it or separate it from its school, or just to get it confused, and then it just makes it easier for the sawfish to go in and eat it. I would love to see that in the wild. I bet that's crazy. That part of them reminds me a lot of crocodiles and alligators and how they go for their prey and wrestle it around. I mean, you see that a lot in the animal kingdom, but just I see these similarities. I've just taken note of the similarities between crocodiles, alligators, and this small tooth sawfish. Okay. The small tooth sawfish is, like I said, it's a ray. Chondrichthyes in the subclass Elasmobranchii, because it has a skeleton of cartilage. I also mentioned that the mouth and gill slits are located on the underside of the body. Getting more into how sawfish reproduce, there's a big slide on the next page, but I did want to mention that they do they have both asexual and sexual fertilization methods. Similar to in the sexual part of it is similar to other elasmobranch members. During males, the males will use specialized penis structures called claspers, which are modified pelvic fins, but they also serve to transfer sperm into the female. The female, when she is fertilized, she is ovoviviparous. The embryos develop within the mother's body, but they're not in a placenta. So they rely on a yolk sac for nutrients throughout the gestation period. So after a period of time, internally, the small rays develop. The female will give birth to live young, usually about 8 to 10 pups. And usually they like to go into shallow coastal regions or estuary habitats, where the water's a little shallower, a little off to the side, not as many large prey animals around. Here's a picture of a female giving birth. So here is the rostrum of a sawfish pup that is peeking out during birth. These are the sawfish claspers that they use to fertilize the female during the sexual reproduction. Females undergo what's called facultative parthenogenesis, where they don't really know why they switch from sexual to asexual. They don't know if it's because there's not enough males. They don't know if it only happens during duress. That's one of the areas of discourse right now in the research area. So I found that extremely fascinating, just to know like the evolutionary benefits between asexual versus sexual reproduction in this fish in particular. Speaking of shallow habitats, the small tooth sawfish habitat is generally shallow, warm, and they like to be in estuaries, mangroves, and seagrass beds in the subtropical regions, particularly around Florida. The coastal waters of Florida and the southeastern United States, the juveniles tend to stay in low salinity and brackish waters, so they'll go into the coves and the streams. But as they age, they'll go back into the salt water. There is a species of large tooth sawfish that prefer freshwater and brackish water, and they usually stay out of the saline water. The large tooth are typically smaller than the small tooth sawfish. Okay. So this is a mangrove area over here where you might spot some juvenile sawfish. You can see how some of the areas where they will kind of go inland, or rather into these formations of rivers. But generally, as they get older, they go a little bit deeper, but not too much. Habitat and conservation, as I mentioned, is a big thing with these sawfish. Their decline in numbers has really hurt research that is being done. You can see up here the small tooth sawfish declined in numbers. This is 1782 to 1999, and this is 2000 to 2009. And you could see like it goes up in the East Coast and in the Gulf at this time, but those are gone. We don't see those sawfish anymore, small tooth sawfish over there anymore. 90% will be within this blue area of all sawfish. And then within that, we have 99% distributions of the light blue, 90% distribution within this dark blue. So this is a captured sawfish. It's now illegal to fish for them. You will see in bars in some locations that they've cut off the rostrum and maybe hung it up in the bar. I don't know why that is special, but that is being enforced now more heavily. The main reason why small tooth sawfish populations has declined is due to fishery. So here you can see the net that's meant to catch fish. The sawfish can get tangled in it really easily, and they can drown. They can wear themselves out, but they get stuck and they can't get out. Small tooth sawfish are mostly around Florida, I talked about, but there are other areas where there are populations, but like I said, 99% are in this area around Florida. There are other sawfish populations that you'll find around Africa, around Australia, and around South America, but the small tooth sawfish, which is the largest, is in the Florida region. Okay, so why are small tooth sawfish cool, and why did I choose them? So like I said, I mentioned I went to this conference and I felt like I was in Disney World because I love hearing about research. It's my number one thing. I find it so fascinating how people draw conclusions, how they come up with plans for research. And there's this man from the Field Museum in Chicago who works on the genetic side of these sawfish populations, finding out who's related to who, what populations are producing asexually, what populations are reproducing sexually. And I was just loved his talk, what he had to say, and I was like, "That's going to be my amazing animal." 'Cause I told a student I was going to do a seal. She brought me a stuffed seal. I told her that I was going to do a seal for my amazing animals presentation, but I had to let her down because I just wanted to know more about these guys. Um, I love how archaic they look. I It makes me think of your obsession with um, nature run amok movies, and I feel like there could be some real possibility having these guys in there. I mean, obviously, like these guys don't feed on humans. They don't engage with humans. Nothing of our size, but I just love how mean they look. But they're like gentle giants. I just wanted to draw more attention to the differences in small tooth sawfish compared to saw sharks. So saw sharks, you can see the rostrum is more pointy. Definitely these barbels. So the rostrum of both the small tooth sawfish and the rostrum of the saw shark, they have electroreceptors that will help them find prey, maybe hiding out in the sand, or around them somewhere, which is helpful for eating for sure. Um, but these barbels help this saw shark do this as well. They also have electroreception in them, and you can see them here, and you can see them here. Um, the small tooth sawfish, the eyes are more like there's more of a bottom to these guys. They're flat. Like I said, their actual body forms like a kite figure. Their eyes are on top of their body. Their mouth and gills are on the underside of their body. Whereas sharks, you could see their lateral here, to see what's going on side to side. These guys you'll often find in the bottom on the bottom of the ocean, and looking up to make sure that predators are not near. Um, Also, this is what I want to put with the fins on the small tooth shark. It looks like a kite, but these guys have pectoral fins that are more fin-like, um, than the small tooth sawfish. And this is my citation page. I was able to cite the gentleman that I met on the west side of Chicago at my conference, as well. Well, and then also this site, Wildlife Nomads. Noah had a great bunch of information that was very, very useful. Noah had a lot of information that was useful.